Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. I know other people that have done these panels have said it's a bit weird. It is a bit weird, isn't it? It's like there's a load of people just outside the door listening in that you can't actually see.
Hi.
So good morning, everyone, and good morning to our panel. And thank you for being here this morning for our final discussion within the NRTF Horizons Conference. And having seen backstage a little bit, it's kind of a technical masterpiece, isn't it, really? So I think the team have done a fantastic job managing everything. I don't quite know how Ellen's doing it while starting a master's as well. So well done. So we're here to talk about mental health and how we can create creative, supportive working environments in regard to that, and also to touch a little bit on mental health within our sector as well. So I'll be asking you all to introduce yourselves in a moment. I just want to reiterate something that Holly said earlier. If there is anything that comes up in the discussion or the rest of the day that affects you, which of course means our panel as well as our wider audience, we have put some links on the chat. They're ones that I've largely suggested. If it's anything a bit more specific, you can get in touch with me. You can find my email address on my profile if you'd like to just ask for anything more specific for a website or a resource or something. So just before we introduce the panel, I'll introduce myself. My name is Nicola. I'm a freelance theatre director. I'm also the artistic director of Up the Road Theatre. Now, we're a small-scale touring company. We've made 2 shows so far since we formed in 2015, and both of those shows have toured with a number of rural touring schemes. Particularly hello to Lindsay, who has saved my life on one of those occasions, and Arts Out West as well. They've been brilliant with us. And we've just got some Arts Council funding to start R&D for our 3rd production, which we'll be doing largely online over the next few months. So I can consider this as a bit of practice. But the main reason I'm chairing this panel discussion is I recently qualified as a mental health first aid instructor. I did the course in 2017, and over the last year, despite lockdown, have managed to get signed off to train people to become mental health first aiders. So mental health first aid, it's a bit like physical first aid in that we're training people to be first responders. We're training them to have a conversation with someone who might be experiencing a mental health difficulty, how to recognize possible mental health concerns, and also to be able to support someone in that emergency of the moment crisis as well. And the course also enables people to look at their own mental health and how they can support and look after themselves. So it's a highly valuable course, I think, and I spend a lot of my time recommending it. So enough about me, let's talk to our panel. Pam, would you like to start and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, my name's Pam Horton. It's a joy to be here, so hello everybody. I've been working at Eden Project in Cornwall for the past 20 years, and you can tell by my grey hair here. It's been a complete joy to work at Eden for that long, and I think probably one of the main reasons why I've been there for so long is that its ethos and its values follow very much what is in my heart and what I want to do to help this planet. So really it's about climate change, and it's about making a difference, and it's about connecting with nature. So when I first started there, I designed and managed and delivered the schools program, the education program, and moved on to designing our leadership programs. So for the past 6 years, with a wonderful team, I've been designing and delivering our leadership programs at Eden, which come under the banner of Hot House. And we take people outside on amazing journeys, and we use nature as that hook and metaphor to talk about the really important issues of our time. So that's me.
That's you. And I think you've got a bit of other news that I think we should just share.
Oh,
the little person or the little one we just met. I think they should be mentioned.
Yes, I'll just go and grab her very quickly.
Lynne, while Pam's grabbing the interlope, oh, here she is. Look at that, everyone.
This is Maudie, and she's 16 weeks, and she's here with us, loving it.
She's being our mental health support. So that's just melted everyone at NRTF. Lynne, hello.
Hi, thanks Nicola. It's lovely to be here today. I'm very passionate about mental health and the arts. So I work at North East Arts Touring, NEAT, which is based in the northeast of Scotland. We work with volunteer promoters in the community to programme theatre, dance and cinema screenings. So my role is to work, engage and mentor young people, so offering them the opportunity to learn skills and commissioning the kind of work that they want to see in their community, work front of house, and connect with others in the community. Most recently, during lockdown, myself and Amir at NEAT, we set up some support sessions, which we connected with people that were isolated and maybe suffering through the pandemic. And we commissioned artists to come on and share their work online and kind of have an open conversation about where everyone's at. Personally, I've had experience of mental health difficulties myself. I'm from a dance background and have made work about my experiences through using dance. So I'm delighted to be here today and share this panel discussion with you all. Thanks.
And Lanre, hello.
Hello. My name's Lanre. I am a, what am I? I'm a director, choreographer, writer for both film and theatre. I make work about shit that keeps me up at night, things that I want to change, whether it's in myself or things that I want to challenge about and within my community and beyond. And I guess, speaking really specifically, my aim for any piece of work that I create, which is always imbued with socially, politically engaged ideas, issues, emotions, my aim is simply to leave an audience with a vibration, a feeling, and that feeling to initiate a change internally, whether that be a thought change, whether that be a way that I guess thought change or perceptions of an idea or of a person, of people. So yeah, it's all about changing people. That's my aim, and whilst also learning more about myself through the work. I'm very linked into what I do in terms of I change and I grow from every project. One of the projects shows, which is what my link to NRTF is Elephant in the Room, which is a dance theatre production I made, which explores some of my own personal experiences with mental health and also the experiences within the Black community, but also beyond that, the male, the kind of stigma that is attached to being a man and experiencing mental health issues. But again, beyond that as well, just anyone who's experiencing it and just the idea of having to hide and what that means. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Fabulous, thank you very much. So let's dip into the questions. So we've lined up some questions for our panel, but we'd love to have some questions from the audience that they will field to us, NRTF will field to us. So if you've got any questions, stick them in the chat on Attendify and they will be sent through to us. So let's start with the basics, panel. What do we consider mental health to mean, and why should we talk about it, particularly in terms of the working environment and our creative sector? Pam, would you like to start us off on that?
Yeah, I think in terms of mental health, I think it affects everybody of all ages, from young people through to the elderly. And in terms of kind of my experience of Eden Project, particularly during this really quite scary time that we're in at the moment, this pandemic, trying to see the positives and have hope, it can be really, really hard. And at Eden, I think we're very good at looking after the team. We're very good at looking after people. And I think in terms of mental health, as I've said, it affects all ages. how we kind of think, feel and act in the world. And it can have some kind of devastating effects. We are all touched by it. And I think there's a lot that we can do in our sector to help people to feel better, to reduce anxiety, depression, to feel healthier. The biggest thing that we do at Eden Project is connect people with nature. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we move into this journey, this panel. That's the biggest thing that we do at Eden that really helps. And it's close to my heart.
Lovely, thank you. Lynne, what do you reckon? What do you consider mental health to mean, and why is it important?
I think mental health is your psychological and emotional well-being, how we act, how we feel, how we think, how we interact with others. I often think that to have good mental health, your baseline is having peace of mind. And I think during the pandemic, many of us haven't had peace of mind, and people with mental health difficulties have struggled to have peace of mind in the past. I know that when I was recovering myself from my mental health difficulties, I found that art was a way of expressing it, and I found it was a way of using an art form to reach others who are also suffering. And I think in the creative sector, we have a wonderful opportunity to use our gifts, whether that's like Lanre as a maker, or as programmers, or as freelancers. I think we have the knowledge to offer the world a little bit of sanctuary during this time. When it comes to when you asked about why it's important to talk about in the working environment, I think it's hugely important to talk about mental health. I always have before the pandemic, and particularly now. And I think that people are having more honest conversations about how we're feeling. Some of the emails I've sent over the pandemic, I've said, how are you feeling? And it's not just a passing comment. It's because we're all feeling this complete confusion and fatigue, and there's a constant kind of up and down that we're feeling. So, and I actually think that the creative sector is very open compared to other sectors to talk about mental health. So, yeah, I think that as a sector, we can come together, listen to each other, and then reach out to others.
Lanre, what do you reckon?
For me, mental health is to be human. And what do I mean by that? You cut your arm, you break your leg, something happens to you physically, you go to the doctors or to the hospital, right? And you get it checked out. And with mental health, because it's something you can't see or doesn't feel like it's tangible, I think we as humans have created this kind of barrier because of that, because of the idea of what it means to not see something and think that thing can have an effect on us and what we're doing. And it can easily shift into a kind of crazy place of, oh well, it's all in your mind, and all those that kind of rhetoric, right? And so why I say it's to be human is because I think we're all realizing more and more, and as the days go by and the more we talk about it, that it is just as important as our physical health, and it is to be human. It's two sides of one coin, and so yeah, I think for me it's just it just means to be human. It is part of who we are as human beings, and once we understand that it is the fabric of who we are as well as the physical fabric of who we are, then I believe that yeah, we're and I think we're moving towards that direction. So yeah, that's what it would be for me.
One of MHFA's key messages is there's no mental health without physical health. almost no physical health without mental health even, so they are both intertwined, they're both, part of us, and, one can affect the other and vice versa.
Yeah.
So Lynne and Lanre, we know that both of you have made work that either was expressed or shared your experiences with mental health. I wondered tell us what you're comfortable with, but tell us a little bit about your work and maybe some of the responses you've had to it as well. Lynne, do you want to start with that?
Yes, we're in a safe space. I was diagnosed and treated for borderline personality disorder in 2015, which is a ghastly label. And in simple forms, it's basically someone who suffered childhood trauma, struggles with my emotions, and before therapy had really poor coping mechanisms. So during therapy, I was researching if there was any dance representations of borderline, and there wasn't. So I was commissioned by the Scottish Mental Health and Arts Festival to create a documentary about my experiences using dance. And we screened it, and the responses were amazing, particularly from young women who, they say, like, I can see myself in the movement, and I can see myself in the struggles that they were experiencing themselves. And I really like challenging and putting my work out into places that are not familiar with using the arts as a centerpiece. So the first, I attended the British and Irish study of personality disorder in Cardiff a few years ago. I spent 3 days listening to really engaging talks from educators, researchers, therapists, but it was very dry and lots of statistics and numbers and words and all of that. And I was like, we're not sensing anything here. Where's the representation of the feeling? And I spoke to the organizers, and I said, I'm taking live dance next year. And they kind of shunned away from me. And so the following year, I co-created a duet and then shared it in a carpeted conference room. And it was astounding, the responses that I got, because suddenly we were like, instead of kind of analysing it, we were feeling it in the room. And people with lived experience and other therapists was like, wow, I just think that the arts have this visceral experience, which is not measurable on a PowerPoint. So I like taking the work into places where arts is not considered the norm. So yeah, that's me.
Lanre.
So your question was about, we made work exploring some of our personal issues. Was there any other specific questions that you had?
So it was, just tell us a bit about the work, whatever you're comfortable to share, and the responses you've had to it. And it'd be interesting maybe to know a bit about your audiences as well.
Cool. So Elephant in the Room is as I said, a dance theatre production exploring some of my personal issues with mental health issue, anxiety and depression. But importantly, so I look at, when I make work, I make work as in circles. So the first circle for me with Elephant in the Room is the conversation and the challenges of being a working class Black man who experiences these things, and the challenges within my community about the stigma of experiencing this as a Black man, and the challenges outside of the community, i.e. racism, classism, all those different things that affect who I am as a Black man. That's the first circle. The wider circle to that is something that I guess we've grown to know as toxic masculinity, right? And I think I want to really highlight that masculinity and being a man is and can be a beautiful thing. I think we attach this word toxic to it, and I think again, when I spoke about coins, the other side of the coin, I think we can easily as men go to that other side of the coin, of that toxic kind of male energy that takes us towards a perpetuation of a rhetoric that doesn't really help us, right, and doesn't help our relationships as men. So that wider circle is, what does it mean to experience these things as a man? And then the wider circle after that is, how do we speak about the things that we can't really speak about, we feel like we can't really speak about as human beings, full stop, which everyone can connect to, whether you're experiencing mental health issues or not. And the reason why I say that is because it's important when I'm creating work that I'm unapologetically creating it from who I am as a Black man, but knowing that I want to foster conversations in the wider community within different types of people, races, genders, etc. And the audiences were really incredible. I premiered it at the Canon People's Theatre. Big up to them. 3 weeks in April last year. And I remember one night an executive producer, a film producer who's done some incredible stuff. He came up to me and he said, "Look, me and you, we are not the same. We are completely different. But I just wanted to say I deeply resonated and connected with what you just did tonight. So thank you." And to this day, that moment really, really stayed with me. He was middle-class white man, but he connected to something in the production, in the thing, the feeling, like Lynne said, right? The feeling of it. And that's what was really important to me whilst making this, is that the feeling of it is transferred out of and into others, and to plant a feeling, to plant a seed. What else did you ask?
No, that's pretty much covered it. That's great. Okay. I just want to bring Pam back in. Obviously, we've been talking about making work. In my experience, the environment, both the physical environment and who's around you and the feeling in that environment, has an impact on the work you can create or the work you are creating. So what do we mean by sort of a healthy working environment, Pam? And is it the same for everyone? Is it a case of, well, this is a healthy environment, one size fits all, there you go? Or is it more complex than that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. My experience of being on furlough and working from home has made me think an awful lot about my working environment and to make sure that it's good for me. We're doing a lot of work at Eden at the moment to make our spaces, to create our spaces in a way that feel good, because people are going through very different emotions at the moment. So yeah, I think it really depends if you're in an office, if you're working from home, wherever it may be, to make it as beautiful and comforting for yourself, really. And actually, interestingly, having kind of got a little puppy a few weeks ago, that's actually really helping my working environment. It's bringing an awful lot of joy. And I think I'm very blessed to be living in Cornwall. It's easy for me to get outside and to just spend 10 minutes just being in nature. For others, it can be a little bit more difficult. But I think what we say at Eden is that even if you just go outside, take a few breaths of fresh air, it can make kind of the world of difference. And a lot of our delegates that come on our programs at Eden, really interestingly, they're not specifically looking for a leadership program. They are actually looking for something different. And they come on our programs actually really feeling like they need to take a breath of fresh air. Yeah. And it is actually literally that. The feedback we've had of delegates leaving because they've spent some time outdoors connecting with nature is absolutely massive. And it can actually have very powerful effects.
I'm going to put a hand up. I'm 31, but when I had to finish a job early at the start of lockdown, I bought a hamster. It was literally the first thing I did. I came back on Thursday, Friday evening, I thought, I'm doing this, and I went and bought a hamster, and she's brilliant.
Yeah.
She sits downstairs. There's a little bundle of energy that sits in the corner of the room, and yeah, she's made a huge difference to me.
That's amazing. And
I couldn't have a puppy or a cat, so I just went for a hamster.
And I think as well, just to touch upon bringing green into your home as well, you know, there's so much research out there, I'm sure you will know, but just the effect that some green in your space or stepping outside, what it does for your mental health is massive. You know, going outside reduces our stress, our anxiety, you know, it increases our levels of vitamin D. It's that feel good phenomenon. And if you can exercise outside as well, that's massive.
Lynne, I know you've had some experiences with NEAT. You were telling me about sort of making those healthy working environments and how that's worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, NEAT operates in a flexible working environment, excuse me. And I mean, I work from home. Prior to the pandemic, I had a day at home, a day in the office, and then a day out in the community. There's 5 of us, a small team that work together, and it's very much based, you choose your hours based on your your personal commitments and your family. So we have 2 women in the office who love structure. So they have specific days where they're in and times that they finish, and potentially the other 3, we're a bit more kind of flexible about how we work. So we might do a bit of weekends and evenings. So I think it creates a much happier work environment, and because it suits everyone. So that works really well. Could I just jump in and reflect on what Pam was saying before? I went on this arts and health retreat about 2 years ago, and we did a listening walk for 30 minutes. It was there's 50 of us, and we were out in the country, and none of us talked for half an hour. We just observed the sky, the outdoors, and it was the most amazing experience. Just a listening walk, silent walk, nothing. And it was funny because when the half an hour was over and we came back to Snape Maltings, we came back, everybody just got a coffee and started chat. And I said, are we not going to talk about how we feel? I'm a feeler. I just remember thinking, it was almost like a transcendent feeling. It was so amazing. And because the rules were that you didn't talk, you just, you know, and you were completely consumed by the sounds and nature. Of course, I wanted a debrief, and everybody else was like, I just need a coffee. And I'm like, can we talk about our feelings? So I should spend more time in nature, but I know that was, for me, was really profound. So I will. Yeah.
Lanre, as an artist, have you got any thoughts you'd like to share on your working environment or working with others, or anything on those lines?
At this current time, the work environment of this current time, in terms of, the times we're living in, or
either.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about that. So, I mean, being a freelancer during this time, I don't even need to say, has been really, let's use the word interesting. And I speak on behalf of every freelancer, who's been affected by this. It's really interesting because, at times we're essentially working on our own hours, right? So yes, we do have projects that are coming up, but a lot of the time, for myself specifically, I'll be at home writing or planning or doing an application with my producer or whatever it may be. And so when lockdown first started, in my head I was like, oh, this is great, because I'm half the time I'm locked down anyway, so I'm all good with this. No, Lanre, no. I tell you what, it was really difficult. It was really interesting at the start because it's the idea that you are locked down, that you are in this, that you can't leave. And also it was the fact that all your, your work, your projects are just taken away from you. So the whole year at the start was all set up for me, and going into 2021, and just slowly, just where things just went tick, 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 tick. And I was like, okay. It was just it was just an adjustment period, which I think everyone had to go through. Finding my grounding in each day, in each morning, was really important for me, became really, and is continued to be really important for me. I did purchase some greens, Pam. This is a selection of my greenery. I've got another one over there. This is the first. I've always wanted to get some plants in my room, and it's the first time I did it, and it's a real big difference. So did that. And
may I ask a question? Something that so you work from home and you're on your own an awful lot. I have found that quite tricky, actually. It's a real joy working from home, and I am able to get outside into some nice green space. I live quite close to a beach. Something that I've missed massively is just the spontaneous conversation that you have within the office environment, and also the connections and the communication is just so utterly different. And I think that's something we need to be really mindful of, is that I definitely, halfway through lockdown, I had a real kind of Zoom fatigue, for sure. And I think for me, just making sure that I keep in touch with my friends and my colleagues, that kind of connection. Otherwise, I can spend a whole week on my own.
Yeah, you're so right, Pam. You're so right. I and that's one of the things that I really, as well, had to almost get out of my bubble and remember and be as to an extent sometimes, because it's so easy to kind of go into the hole. I have to go, well, no, I this day I need to make sure I connect with X person or do these things, or invite those spontaneous conversations that sometimes might flow. I think, I will be honest, there was a time during the start where there was actually too much conversation. What do I mean by that? Because we were all like, what the, I'm not gonna swear, what the F is going on? What the F is going on? What the F is going on? Everyone was doing, I was getting sent these flipping press up challenges every flipping hour. I'm like, guys, I don't want to effing do a press up on Instagram, or do you know what I mean? I just want to find my ground first, guys. Just find out what's going on in my life. And it was just too much. It was too much, and so, it was, like I said, it's the adjustment, right? And it's going, okay, I can go into my hole. How do I get out of my hole and make sure I'm connected with people, but also respecting the fact that it doesn't need to be all the time, everyone all the time, and I'm yapping too much, so I'm going to stop there. But yeah,
I think I found that, having just come off a directing job, where you're surrounded by people, there's always people talking to you, you're doing something, the day goes like that, to suddenly being sat here in my study, having not even had the chance to see the show performed that we've been making. It's just such a massive change. I'm used to having time after a job, and we all know, when you've done that job or that project and you feel a bit blue afterwards, having not had the chance to see the work, you were just left being like, I haven't even had the moment when we've gone, yes, we've done it. We've been denied that. And I found just this huge shift, massively different. And apart from the hamster, phoning people, like, just quite, it was interesting who was getting in touch with me as well. Like, people going, friends from university in completely different jobs going, your industry's been really affected. How are you getting on? I'm like, oh, someone's realised. That's nice. Phoning people, again, getting outside. And I've got a life coach as well, and she's been brilliant. Like, the first session I had with her, she said, so tell me what's been happening, and I just cried. Didn't see that coming, but she's been great. And Yeah, I think it's trying to find genuine contact, isn't it, as much as you can. Like I've had friends, I live in Hertfordshire, and I've had friends drive over from North London so we can go for a walk in the Lee Valley Park, which I really appreciate, particularly when we couldn't use public transport. You know, you sort of sit there going, I can't drive. I'm you know, who can anyone come to me? And people did, I think, which was really nice. So we had Ruth earlier talking about how every person is a leader. We were talking a little bit, or we're going to talk a little bit about leadership in the workplace. And I think she's answered that question. Like, you don't have to be a manager to be a leader. So why is leadership important when we're thinking about mentally healthy working environments? Why is the leadership so vital? Lynne, can I start with you?
Yeah, I've been really very fortunate to work at NEAT. I've been there 5 years, and I don't think I've ever worked in an environment where it's there's an emphasis on well-being, personal well-being, my own personal well-being, and that of the work that I'm doing. And yeah, it's a really safe space for me to, particularly because I've had mental health difficulties. And in the beginning, I never talked about them. And it's over time that I was able to say, oh, I've struggled. And I can just check in with Amir, the director. You know, I can check in with him and say, oh, I'm struggling a wee bit here. Can I get a bit of space and time? And it's completely respected. And I also think it's really important to be mindful of others that you work with, because we all have different personalities, different preferences, different ways of learning. We all have different energies, and it's always trying to be mindful of reflecting. It's almost like being empathetic to them and mindful of your own feelings. So it doesn't have to be in leadership. However, if leadership comes from a compassionate and very open space, then it trickles down into the team. So yeah.
What about you, Pam? Have you got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think ultimately, as Lanre was saying earlier, it's about being human.
Yeah.
I'm not too good. I need to be careful what I say, I guess, seeing as I work in quite a large organisation, but I'll say it. Hierarchy doesn't suit me. And again, something that Lanre mentioned is working in circles. If you take that strategic framework that a lot of organisations have, it's often you see the strategy in pillars. If you simply take an organisation's strategy and put it in a circle, it can do wonders. And I think being a good leader, we're all leaders in our own right. And, you know, I see my 9-year-old daughter as an amazing little leader. When I go out for walks with her, she leads me on her little nature adventures. My little puppy is an amazing little leader, often takes control. And I think it's really important to look at leadership in that way, and that it's so important, I think, in terms of just being human, authentic, compassionate. You know, one of my heroes is Brené Brown, because she talks about being vulnerable, and that it's such an important element of being a good leader, is being able to show your vulnerability and letting others do that. And that's really what it is for me, very much. And of course, in organizations, there is hierarchy, there's leaders, there's managers, but you need everybody, and you need those connections, and you need that community of all the different levels working together. So really what we do at Eden in terms of our leadership programs is it's about, you know, spending some time in nature, and it's about looking at your inner self and what are those elements that, you know, what are your values, basically.
Lanre, is there anything you'd like to chip in on comments about leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just briefly for me, kind of linking on from everything Pam said, and I you know, ask myself, what is leadership, right? And for me, it's just being able to authentically hold a space, right? And I think authentic is well, they're both all the words are important, but when I say authentic, I guess authentically, I guess I mean being able to be in touch with the human, the vulnerability of you, in order to hold space and touch others and allow them to bring their vulnerability to the table, right? Because then that's how you move forwards with whatever you're doing, whether it be, and that's how I,
I think it's about how we it's very much about how we own our power, isn't it? You know, we can give great examples of those leaders who are not owning their power very well. And I think really it does come down to, you know, the ethical, conscious, mindful leadership, where we are owning our power in a really beautiful way. And we can really learn from those men and women that are doing it brilliantly, and those who are not.
And I think it's all sort of stems from the same thing, doesn't it? Like we've talked about being human and having empathy. And if the right environment is set up, I know when I first started making my first show with Up the Road, so Up the Road is just me. The only time we work with other people is when we work on a project, which has its pros and cons, of course, working on your own. But the first time we did a project, I felt that I had to follow what was kind of being demonstrated by the people we were working with, who were more experienced, who were older. So if there's, for example, if they're sending emails to me on a Sunday, I feel I have to respond to that email on the Sunday. Whereas actually at times what I really wanted to do is forget that I was actually trying to make anything because I was finding it so hard, and just pretend it wasn't there and then deal with it on the Monday. And it can be difficult, I think, when you're new or when you're young, to be able to say, actually, I'd like to finish the working day at 6. And when I'm directing, because I'm also producing it, I can't have a meeting with you at lunchtime about the tour, because it will take my head into a different place, and I need to be thinking about actually what we're going to be putting on that stage, rather than the stages it's going to be going on. You know, let's find a time in the week to have that conversation, but I don't want to do it in a lunch break. It can be really hard, I think, to be able to do that, to be able to say that. And I think the more people are able to kind of perhaps notice that someone else might have, like you were saying, Lynne, might have a different need, or might need to be have a flexibility in a different way, I think that can be really supportive. And so we have had some questions coming in from our invisible audience. One, I know, Pam, you've just touched on, so open it up to the others. Who or what inspires you to do what you do?
Okay, I'll go. I get really excited by artists that make work around mental health or social issues. I love, I'm going to show you a book. I don't know if any of you, I haven't seen it, but I did The Artist's Way. Pam, have you heard of this?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Have you heard of that? Julia Cameron. Love that. It's about getting in touch with your creative side. I just love people like Brené Brown. Anyone that speaks out and you know, talking about being human, allowing space for people to be honest, really inspire me. And my brothers, you know, because we look at people that inspire us, or you know, my family inspires me. It doesn't have to be someone in the arts world. So I'm very mindful of looking at those qualities and thinking, you know, can I aspire to be more like that?
That's nice. Lanre, you have any inspirational?
Yeah, anyone who just speaks their truth from even when it even when their voice flutters, even when everything inside them is saying no, just hide, just stay closed, and they have that. They find this hidden power, which we all have, to speak, whether that's through their work, through public speaking, whatever form, shape or form. You know, I have loads of artists, you know, filmmakers, theatre makers, choreographers who inspire me because they do those things. And I could list off a whole load of names, but the main thing, the main reasoning is that, you know, speaking truth to power. So yeah.
That's a great answer. So pay attention to this one. It's got 2 parts. Does the language of lockdown cause us to create walls where they don't exist? We work in the arts and are about encouraging others, but when it's grey outside, it can be hard to want to see art. So does the language of lockdown cause us to create walls where they don't exist? Who wants to open that up?
Create walls.
Sorry, can I ask when we say the language of lockdown, maybe tell me what everyone thinks that is, just so I know. Is it the stuff that we've been talking about?
So I would guess it's things like social distancing and isolation and shields and, you know, all those they're kind of quite negative terms, really, aren't they? Like, I know someone on one of those, you know, mutual aid WhatsApp groups a while ago when I think it should be called physical distancing because we can still be social, you know, and you think, well, yes, but
yeah.
So I think it's you know, it's things like that. How can we kind of pick people up and say, you know, look, engage with something positive or engage with something maybe that's different or that isn't, you know, about lockdown and restrictions and isolation, you know, like people say when you're experiencing depression, the things that you are supposed to do or you can do to help you are sometimes the things you least want to do. So how can we encourage people that actually now's a great time to go and experience an art? That's what I think the question means. The person who wrote it might be sitting there going, she's so wrong. But that's what I've interpreted it to mean. Who wants to lead on that, about the language of lockdown, creating barriers or walls?
Our brains are going.
I can hear them.
Well, ultimately, I think that it can be so utterly negative. I mean, we're all going through our own little journey at the moment, aren't we? And it's easy to get embroiled in the negative news, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when this all first started in March, I was religiously looking at the news.
Yep.
And it was just crazy. I was kind of looking forward to it, which is really
watching the briefings at 5 p.m. to see what happens.
Yeah. And now, you know, I look back and I just think, wow, what was going on? I guess I was maybe just a little bit worried. And now I have a little bit of a routine. I make sure that, you know, my day does have a routine. And I know I've mentioned nature a lot, but it's really important for me to get outside, do a bit of exercise and to focus on some other stuff and to read some other stuff. I think for me, you know, yes, I do social media, but the stuff that I have decided to look at is the positives and the things that kind of make a difference, really. And, you know, we're not talking about climate change at the moment. And I know that can be scary and negative, but, you know, I try and look at the positives, and it's tricky, but it's something that I really try to do, is to look at a couple of things that are positive and hopeful each day.
Yeah, go on, Lynne, go on.
I think that there comes with a level of acceptance that you can only control what's happening in your kind of really immediate environment. And you're right, Pam, it's that watching the news, you become overwhelmed. Or we're going back into another lockdown, we're always on this kind of adrenaline. And I suppose it's about trying to find ways of switching off. I often do a lot of writing. I have a routine in the morning. I write all my feelings down, set myself up for the day. What is my goals? What do I want to manifest? And then, you know, a daily walk, or and it's funny because I when I visit my mother, she's just devastated. Oh my God, she's always on high alert. And I said, whoa, we can only control what's in the day. And so I think that comes with a level of acceptance of what we can change and what we have to let go of. So it's always having that self-awareness and having that self-talk of saying, I've only got today, so I'm in this moment, and I can't project forward. I can only kind of, because we're so used to planning in the arts, and we're planning for the shows, and we're planning for work and creative processes, and we don't have that kind of gift anymore.
That security, yeah.
That security and that something to look forward to. So we're kind of sitting on this ground where we're just accepting what's happening right now in the moment.
My mum brought me a poster a few years ago, and it says, "Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass; it's about learning to dance in the rain." Which I, you know, it's kind of, you almost need those days where you go, "This is all going on, but actually, we're going to have a really nice day today, doing all those things we can do." We've got one more question from the audience, and then I've got something I'd like us all to wrap up with, to leave our people with. And I think this is a really good question. Any advice for how to begin these conversations, so the things we've been talking about empathy, flexibility, space, within an organisation, if it hasn't been a space that has had them before? So how can organisations start having these conversations if it's not something that's come up before? Any pointers on that?
Well, I mean, there's always art, or there's representations of art as a starting point to say, I've seen this. I mean, I don't know what kind of organisation or context you mean, but particularly now in where we're at, I think during the pandemic, it's the perfect time to say, wow, you know, can we start having conversations, or, you know, take someone in who has a background in well-being. Yeah, sorry,
I'm just thinking you could invite someone in, couldn't you?
Yes,
you could set up a call,
yeah,
to kind of just trigger that discussion.
Yeah,
someone that's trained in mental health first aid, perhaps, you know, but someone that runs a well-being workshop, you know,
yes,
all those sorts of things, to have like a discussion.
Yeah.
So someone doesn't feel they have to be the one to go, I've struggled, and can I talk about it? It needs that sort of that first person, doesn't it, to start something. Anything else, Pam, Lanre, any other pointers for how an organisation could start some of these quite difficult conversations?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. If you can bring in somebody who has experience to be able to start these conversations, but it really needs to be done in a creative way. Get rid of the PowerPoints. Get outside, go for a walk, spend some time in nature, and do it in a little bit of a different way. You know, let the imagination flow, because I think that's really key.
And I think sometimes if you get everyone to start thinking about themselves, like as we've been saying, we all have mental health, whether whether it's something that you are struggling with or whether you're not, you've got mental health. And if people start looking, I think you were saying this on the phone, Pam, when people start looking at themselves, that, you know, they actually find they do have something to contribute to that conversation. So I think that's great. Lanre, you've unmuted yourself.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with Pam and Lynne there, and both what you said is totally kind of where I would be. You know, I haven't worked like formally in an organization. Obviously, I've been freelance in different, you know, organizations, but I would say from my perspective, that would be the best route in, and get rid of the PowerPoints. Should be printed on t-shirts when it comes to mental health stuff. So yeah.
No, and I think we each have our own, you know, everybody has their own story, and, you know, there's a lot out there in terms of you know, what you can do to really listen and share your story. We've got many ways we do that at Eden Project, in a really safe and comfortable way, where you can share you and what you're about. And I think, you know, that's really important. We each hold our own story, and that's what we need to share at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know what other people's stories are, do you? So if you can start with yours, you might find that someone else goes, my sister had that, or actually I can relate to that. But if no one ever says anything, you'll never know.
And it's also like a pick and mix. Not everybody's going to respond to, you know, some people may love dance as an outlet, or music, or writing, or poetry, and it's kind of like trying to find that thing that really kind of resonates with someone, and it's going to push them through forward to feel better.
Yeah. So we're nearly done. Pam, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I would say also have conversations in a circle around a fire, and if you can't have a fire, light a candle
with marshmallows. Marshmallows.
Yeah.
So I'd like just to wrap this up, I'd like you've got a choice. Okay, you've got A or B. Could you either give me one idea that someone can implement to support their mental health, whether that's when they're getting quite stressed or just a good practice to embed, or a comment or a quote about mental health for us to dwell on? So you can give us either or both if you feel drawn to both. Something nice and positive for us to leave our audience with. My quote, I'm watched for the first time the film It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Tom Hanks film. I saw that at the weekend for the first time. It's a beautiful film. And he says towards the end of the film, Tom Hanks's character, and we touched on it earlier actually, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And I just thought that's great. You know, if once you can start having a conversation, once you can take that first step to talk to someone, and that's a message that MHFA you know, really try to put across is that start talking, and then you can start that road to recovery or get that support. By mentioning it, it can become manageable. So that's mine. Who's ready to give theirs? Lynn, are you?
Yeah, oh, I'm just going to say, I have a wall full of quotes that sit next to me. So I love this. I talked about peace of mind. So set peace of mind as your highest goal and organize your life around it. And another thing, just one more thing is find the midway between reflection and distraction. So if I find myself in a depressive state, sometimes I need to learn when is it okay for me to sit with that and explore my emotions, and when is it time for me to take action and move forward and find that meaningful, purposeful distractions that will then kind of allow me to kind of grow.
That's wonderful. Lanre, what have you got?
Something I say in rehearsals a lot, actually, when I'm working with performers, don't forget to breathe. And what do I mean by that? Everything starts and ends with the breath, whether that's, you know, movement, whether that's and this is in performance context, movement, or, you know, speaking text or whatever. It starts and ends with the breath, but also as human beings, that's all we have right now in this moment is our breath, and we forget that. And it's so simple and it's so obvious, and the beautiful thing about being human is that we sometimes forget the most obvious things that are right in front of us or that are right inside of us, right? So don't forget to breathe. Sometimes I find just stopping and breathing and realizing that no matter what, I have breath in my lungs, and starting from that place.
Pam, what's yours? Thanks, Lanre.
Yeah, thank you. Really beautiful, all of you. Just to follow on from that is if you can turn off your phone and your computer, take off your watch, and take those few breaths outside, wherever that might be, because we are part of nature. We're not apart from it, and it's a pulse that beats through our veins, and it can heal. So thank you.
Yeah, guys, that's been so interesting, and you know, we've talked about quite a lot of different things, and we've almost come in on time, just 1 minute over by one of my watches. Anyway, they all say different times. But thank you so much for joining us this morning, Lanre, Lynne, and Pam. Thank you for being here. I know you're all really busy at the moment, so thank you for taking the time out. And Lynne, I'm really looking forward to your session later. I'm looking forward to that. Good luck with your various projects and your working environments and everything. And hopefully one day we can all meet absolutely in person with the same background.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Nicola.
Take care.